Next item is consideration of removal and replacement of Planning Commissioner David Ellis pursuant to banning Municipal Code Section 2.28.020C and Section 6.4C of the Manual Procedure Guidelines for the Conduct of City Council and commissioners during the meeting for the City of Banning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. At the request of the Mayor, I put this item on the agenda for the Council's consideration. The Municipal Code reads that members of the Planning Commission shall serve at the pleasure of the City Council and may be removed at any time by a majority vote of the entire Council. The Code of Conduct for Council and Commission meetings under Section 6.4 reads in part, absent any other provision to the contrary, members of any non-city organization or city committees, boards, or commissions may be removed by the Council without cause by a majority vote of the whole Council body. Any member of the City Council may place the question of such removal on the agenda, which is what the Mayor requested. So this item is, that's really all I have on the staff report. This item really is a discussion for the City Council.
Okay, thank you. I'll make my comments first on this since my name got placed on the agenda with it. Under the Banning Municipal Code, and this is a Manual of Procedure Guidelines, Chapter 2.28 under the Planning Commissions, members shall serve at the pleasure of the Council and be removed at any time by a majority vote of the Council. In that same writing, conduct of members of commissions. Don't speak in derogatory fashion concerning colleagues, employees, or citizens. And in Article 10, in the Manual of Procedural Guidelines for the Conduct of City Council and Commission meetings on decor and order. And this was under 10.1F. Legislative body members, and that's commissioners also, shall accord the utmost courtesy to each other, to city or legislative body employees, and to the public, and shall refrain at all times from rude and derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statement as to motives and personalities which disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the order of a meeting. These guidelines were updated and approved by this Council. And it was for all of us that are public servants serving our community. I have very little more to say except that someone earlier this evening mentioned that I met with David Ellis, and I did. My sole purpose at that time was to encourage, and by the way, David Ellis has done some very good things for the city. But my sole purpose of that meeting at the time was to try to get Mr. Ellis to realize that his demeanor, not only here in council meetings, which can be viewed on Channel 10, or in commission meetings, which can be viewed on Channel 10, has been very personal in some respects, very abusive to elected officials and other board members. And this is conduct that this council approved in these guidelines that cannot be continued or allowed in our meetings. Any other comments from city council members?
No.
I'll open it up to the public.
Excuse me, before you get started. Mayor Welch.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Since Councilmember Miller wasn't here, he wanted me to read something for him. So
Oh,
I think
okay.
I'll read it before public comment. Okay, this is from Councilmember Miller, and it said, "I am sorry I am ill and not able to attend this meeting, but I doubt that my vote would affect anything. There is absolutely no reason except personal ones to consider removing Dave Ellis from the Planning Commission. He has been diligent and most serious, dedicated member we have been fortunate to have on the commission. Why would anyone on the council consider removing him? Has a council member been insulted by Ellis? Yes. So what? What we need is serious volunteers, not subservient ones. Has he disagreed with the council members? Yes. So what? To repeat, we need good volunteers, not political yes men. If you vote to remove him, you will demonstrate that you are more interested in your ego than in helping Banning. When you vote to remove him, you will show how important you consider your image compared to what is important to Banning. However, your removing Ellis will not improve your image. It will simply reinforce the image of the council as being driven strictly by its own welfare and not the welfare of our city." Ed Miller. Thank you.
David Ellis, Planning Commissioner. David Ellis, lifelong citizen of Banning. What I'd like to ask the council, and I don't think that I should be public comment right now. I think I should be involved in the discussion here on my actions. I'm a good commissioner. I do my due diligence. I'm one of the few commissioners that studies every single line and every single item that's in the reports. And I dare any of you to challenge that I'm not a good commissioner. Where we have a problem is, most recently with some of my conduct in a meeting, was because of our city manager, wherever he's gone. Very similar to the city manager of Bell with the way he's doing things. He allowed his staff to present a mitigating negative declaration to our commission that was riddled with errors. Do I sit back as a commissioner and say, oh, let's just let it go through? Or do I do what's best for the citizens of this town and critique the document and ask for answers? It took me 2.5 hours, and I still had the developer lying to me. I still had staff lying to me. I couldn't get to the bottom of it. The city of Jurupa was the lead agency. Is that correct, council? No. The developer made a statement that we had a orange grove where the development's going up. I talked to a lady, not a young lady, she's young to me, whatever. 90-some years she's been in this city. Never been a citrus orchard on there. But to this date, our city manager and our developer swears that there was a grove there. So I guess what you're telling me then is, as a good commissioner, I'm supposed to just play ball with corruption and deception when I get my documents? That's not the discussion we had, Art. And I'm very set back that I'm here right now having discussed this, because you told me that if I controlled my conduct, that we wouldn't have to go forward with this. And I took you at your word. I felt we had a verbal agreement, contract. And then this turns around. But I don't think it's you, Art. I think it's this man that sits right here. I call him Rizzo Rock now, because he is just like the city manager of Bell in the way he operates. And he's throwing me under the bus for his incompetence. And it's not the first time that he's done it. We had issues on the districting, where Councilman Peterson walked right by Frank Burgess coming out of the office, where he gave Rizzo Rock his letter for the suit. And Rock failed to bring it to you folks. And how embarrassing it was to see you folks sitting here, okay, when you're being chastised by Mr. Burgess over a document that you never received. That's a good city manager? That's a rogue city manager, in my opinion. Had the issue with the document he gave us. It was basically a comic book. And I think you guys, you should, excuse me, I think the council should realize that. And I'm trying to do what's best for the citizens of this town. I'm not doing what's best for you folks or what's best for me. I want to do what's best for the whole for the whole community. So what we have here is, I don't think we have an issue about me being a good commissioner. What we have an issue with is the council trying to take my First Amendment rights away as a citizen. Because every time I come to this podium, I address myself as a citizen of Banning, not a commissioner. And when I criticize and when I critique and I get upset with what's going on, it's as a citizen. I'm vested in this town. I've lived here many, many years. I'm concerned. I have grandchildren that I want to be able to have a success in this town. And I have to fight you people over corruption when you know the document that I got and I had to spend 2.5 hours, and that's rude that I had to spend 2.5 hours. It's my fault I had to spend 2.5 hours drilling staff and the developer for a document. You know, Art, I walked away with a lot of good information from our meeting, and I thought that I'd have an opportunity to use it. But now I'm starting to wonder, why would you allow the city manager? You guys run this city, not the city manager. Why would you allow him to do stuff like this? I'm the best planning commissioner that this town's probably had in 20 years when it comes to due diligence and doing what's right. And I don't think I should be cut off at 5 minutes either. Thank you, Art. But anyway, is there any dialogue that we can have on this? Can you tell me what conduct has been wrong in what meetings besides the one where I received a document that was really I couldn't city of Jurupa and all this stuff? I mean, any feedback on that? It's like a staff report, guys. I mean, it's like I'm a developer talking here. Yeah. No answers, huh? Because none of you, not one of you, can sit here and say that I am a bad planning commissioner and I have been out of line during our meetings. I may be boisterous and outspoken when it comes to being a citizen of this town, and you cannot restrict my First Amendment rights. Not at all. Under no conditions will you take my First Amendment rights away. And under no condition will I let you take anybody's First Amendment rights away. So this isn't an issue about my performance. This is a personal issue about this guy right here that doesn't like me. And it's not right. It's not right at all. Thank you.
Rick Pippinger, City of Banning, probably 35 years, something like that. And I can't disagree with one thing that David said. I've seen a lot of planning commissioners come and go. Some were okay, some were not so good, some were really bad. David is by far one of the best ones that any of you have ever seen and that I've ever seen. And I agree with him also about our city manager. If anybody's removed, it should be him. Thank you.
Jerry Westlaw, City Banning. First of all, I'd like to say, by that ordinance that was just read, Mr. Welch, you and Mr. Moyer should both be recused immediately. How about the time, Mr. Welch, when your mic was left on and you chastised the good citizens of this city underneath your breath and you talked negative about them and everybody heard? And Mr. Moyer, how about the time where you publicly chastised me over a disagreement that we had just because I was on the opposite side of the fence for you, and how you violated the Brown Act? Are those not the same charges you're bringing against Mr. Ellis? And he does have a First Amendment right. Mr. Welch, you were in the service. I'm an old Marine. I fought for a constitution, not a socialistic government. This sounds so much like retaliation. It looks like retaliation. It smells like retaliation. And I think this is just an abuse of power. I don't think this should have ever been brought before this council. Is Mr. Ellis boisterous? Yes. I'm reminded of a World War II general that was incredibly boisterous, and they benched him, only to beg him to come back during the siege of Bastogne in order to take over I believe it was the 7th Army, and his name was General Patton. Not that David is General Patton, but some of your best people have different personalities, and it's okay. And to silence him and to do this injustice, which is exactly what it is, an injustice, is criminal and would speak highly of the character of this council if you vote to dismiss him. And I trust the people watching will listen and remember this at voting time. Thank you very much.
My name is Linda Pippinger, citizen of Banning, but this letter is from Dorothy Familetti McLean. She had to leave early. Whoever made up this agenda made it so late she had to leave. Anyway, it says, council members, in regards to the dismissal of David Ellis on the Planning Commission, did he break a law? Does he say that since he is on the Planning Commission that he's not able to speak as a citizen and express his views at a council meeting? If not, then he has the right to stay on the commission. I hope this is not just a power play because he said something that you people did not like, made public, or you did not agree with him. Think about it. Dorothy McLean.
Cheer up, Mayor. Get a smile on your face. You're all going to do what we expect you're going to do, and it's sad because you're not listening to the citizens of Banning at all. And 2/3 of the time, you never do. 9 months ago, I asked for a report from this council when you were the mayor of $77,000 on a project that was never collected. But get back to Mr. Ellis. Each of you tonight will vote to remove your planning commissioner and chairman, one of the same persons. While doing so, you must ask yourself a few questions. Why are you doing this? Is it because you don't like David Ellis? Is he doing his job as a commissioner? Has any of his fellow commissioners complained of his work? Does he do his homework by reading the agenda and checking out the items that is on the package? Who is the one requesting Mr. Ellis be removed? Are you honestly saying to this citizen group here tonight that it's solely your request that you're asking him to be removed? Can you honestly say that? I'm looking right at you, and you're the only one I can address. Can you say that? No, I asked you a question. I think I'm entitled to an answer because I think you should tell the truth on it. Who are you going to get to replace? I've sent you all this email, so you've all had it, but the wording's a little different. It should be tonight. But who is going to replace Mr. Ellis? Are we throwing away 3 years or more of his knowledge of the Planning Commission procedures? Are you willing to do that? It takes, and the Planning Commissioner, he's gone, but he could answer that. It takes years to learn to be a planning commissioner, just like it takes years to be a city councilman. You don't do it the first 6 months or 3 months you're there. I served 12 years on the city council, and I still learned from it. How long will it take a new person to get on board with all of the laws? Who will be next that you'll ask to get off the council if they don't satisfy your decisions? You as a council person must remember this is a volunteer job, and a person, David Ellis, does this for the best of the citizens of Banning, as do all the other commissioners on it. You may or may not like Mr. Ellis, but he is doing his job as a planning commissioner and as chairman. He does his homework, I have talked to the commissioners, and not one of them has anything but good to say about Mr. Ellis. And they will say that he does his homework and knows what is going on and what is best for the city. Should you remove him, you will have set this city back even more years. It has already been set back in the last 15 years. Making the decision of the city of Benton is not for personal reasons, but remember that. You're doing this on behalf of the citizens. You're telling me he doesn't qualify. 29,000 people, you're the mayor, you're the leader, and then the 29,000 people are saying he's not worth a damn to be on the planning commission. That's what you're saying on it. Mr. Ellis should not be removed just because he speaks at the council meeting as a private citizen of Banning. Have a great day and do the right thing for the citizens of Banning. And I wish you would answer me as to who asked you to take the responsibility. And one other question that you would need to address to the city council or to the city attorney, if I read that packet right, it said a full council. We're short one. So can the city attorney tell you or me the right that you three people that you're going to vote against him, that you have a right to do so when you're short one council member? Based on what I read, it said in there a full council to be present, majority of the full council. Full doesn't mean 4 people. So you may correct me on that. And
Mayor.
one other quick thing, then I'll let him go ahead. You mentioned, you held up a package there. I'm reading it 2.28.020C, and under section 64C of the code is for the conduct. I don't know the items that you were reporting.
Same thing.
Where do they come from?
Right out of here. Right out of here.
Where do I look in the ordinance for those?
I don't think it was listed in your
I'm sorry?
agenda. If you look at resolution number,
Police officer might get that. I don't want to go up there and he shoot me. He won't.
That's online,
He's a good boy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll read it over on it. But anyhow, I'm just
You got
reading
it.
what's on the agenda is 2.28.020C, and under section 6.4C of the manual of procedure guidelines. Does that refer to this?
yes,
I know you don't know.
yes.
Now, you're saying yes. I'd like to hear the attorney say it. But anyhow, the evening's not going well for me. I'm batting 0 for 5 right now, but that's not unusual for the last year that I've been coming here, because you folks are not listening to these people out here. You just don't listen. You never put anything back on the agenda. You never give them an answer for anything. And it's sad. It's very, very sad. And you should resign as a city council unless you straighten up your act and represent the citizens of Banning. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, I do not know Mr. Ellis, but I know that the commissioners had to elect him their chairman. They had a lot of confidence and respect in what he does, that he is the one who does read everything and help them understand what's going on. So the other commissioners did have respect and confidence in Mr. Ellis.
Begin. Council Mayor Diane Box, resident of Banning. Did Mr. Michael Rock go home, or he just doesn't care to listen to his citizens? Hiding? Is there a reason why you left your post?
Speak up here, please.
Is there a reason why he can leave his post and everybody
Yes,
else?
he can. He can walk back and sit with staff. Please continue.
Amazing. Following up with Mr. Burgess, Mr. Miller is not here, and I heard twice that the whole council, as well as the entire council, has to be here, unless I misunderstood that. Okay, thank you. I'm sure 3 of you already have your minds made up. It's pretty sad because that's been the MO of 3 of you for every single vote there is. It's been 3 against 2, no matter what. I'm here tonight because I felt the absolute need to support Commissioner Ellis against this attack of his character. He is very passionate about his city. It's very hard to find people like him. It seems Michael Rock, our new city manager, is upset because he was exposed as trying to run this city like the city of Bell. Yes, I would too be embarrassed as well. No wonder he was let go from the city of Lomita after only 3 years. This guy jumps from job to job, can't hold a position for longer than 5 years. Wouldn't a man of 50-plus years be ready to retire, sit in a career job, and not out looking for employment every few years? That is a major red flag to me. Where do we find these people? Is there a list of incompetent city managers on Craigslist? We need better. Commissioner Ellis raised concern about documents that had already been approved by Michael Rock and sent to the Planning Commission for approval. When Mr. Ellis read these, he noticed major issues of plagiarism as well as many references to a different city altogether. It took the commission over 2 hours to realize that these were reruns from a different project in a different city. They just added the city of Banning here and there to make it be pushed through. Did Rock even read it, or is he just being courted by these developers too? So he gets exposed by Mr. Ellis, and all of a sudden Mr. Ellis is on the agenda to be removed as commissioner? Seems like Mr. Rock is the one that needs to be on the agenda to be let go again. Do not let Mr. Rock finish off Banning once and for all. We need Ellis. He seems to be the only one actually looking out for Banning's best interest. Keep Ellis. Get rid of Rock.
Evening again, Mayor, council members, James Payne, citizen Banning. Came here to show support also for Mr. Ellis and a citizen, kind of put my stamp on it. I look up at that sign and I see something that refers to Mr. Ellis. And I'm not talking about established 1913. But Mr. Ellis has a proud history. Been here a long, long time, longer than many of us, longer than me for sure. He also believes in a prosperous tomorrow. I can see that. I can see that through his actions. I can see how he cares, and he exudes character. He does that by being responsible in his planning processions and informed decision making. I came up here to talk about him, boast about him, talk about his character, his fair judgment, and do all that. But one of the things that I see is, how this is going, and when it first opened up on the agenda, where it came, and Mr. Mayor, you wound up, citing the code or whatever it is that he's in violation, and then kind of things wound up being more clear in the air of where it came out that these are attacks that are being attacked against his First Amendment, and really can't deal with that as a citizen or a person, someone doing that. I see everything going on here, and I just can't understand why this is happening. You're all up here as, responsible city officials elected, and the folks that are up here tonight come up and standing and talking and, saying one thing about one person or another. Everybody that we had in common, whether it was not Mr. Rock or the council or whoever, we all came forth, we all sat tonight, we stood waiting for our turn to speak on behalf of Mr. David Ellis. And as you folks are up here to represent the city and what we want, I'm reiterating what many folks have said preceding me to support Mr. Ellis. Show your support, show where you lie. He's done a great service as a commissioner. He's been a great person as a neighbor. He's been doing great things as a citizen that cares about the city of Banning. Appreciate the time. Hope you do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I have a couple of letters to read.
Okay.
Thank you. This first letter is from Fred Sakurai. My name is Fred Sakurai, and I live in the city of Banning. And prior to last year, I was a regular attendee at the Banning City Council meetings. Often I would stand and make comments as I thought were fitting for the occasion. That was until last year. It is my thought that Member Peterson derived a method to make it uncomfortable for me to stand up and speak. A prime party to that method was Mr. David Ellis. I am glad to read on the agenda for this meeting is the item concerning the conduct of Planning Commissioner David Ellis. At one meeting, Mr. Ellis chose to attack my wife and her contributions to the welfare of the city. At that time, I decided that if the council was going to accept this sort of behavior by a representative of the city, I would prefer to bow out. Now that the question has come before the Banning City Council, I vote a resounding thumbs down on the issue of the retention of Mr. David Ellis. P.S. Short reminder of the conduct of then Commissioner Ellis during a Patriots Day flag waving demonstration. He tried to manhandle a Banning police officer. My second letter is from Garrett. Okay.
Quick, make me a brief statement. That was a ridiculous statement that I would have derived a method to keep him from coming here. Ridiculous. However, we all know that Fred Sakurai is the talking head for our former mayor and council member, Bob Botts. And as you know, our former councilman that quit and walked off the dais has now become a consultant and lobbyist for Diversified Pacific. So this is why Fred Sakurai, speaking for Bob Botts, would want David Ellis off of the count or off of the commission. And once again, that you connect the dots and you start seeing where everything comes from. David Ellis is a threat to Diversified Pacific. Bob Botts is the agent for Diversified Pacific, and Fred Sakurai is the talking head. That's it.
This other letter is from Gary Hieronymus. Council members, we have had a very controversial issue in the reduced lot sizes at Sunset and Wilson in direct conflict with the city's general plan and the state's housing element, but still approved by 3 of the council members under what many consider to be suspicious circumstances. Now we have the mayor calling for one of the planning commissioners to be removed and replaced. Why? David Ellis has every right to speak, both as a planning commissioner and as a private citizen, about that very controversial decision. He has done nothing illegal. He has done nothing immoral. He has done nothing that approaches either malfeasance nor any legitimate reason to remove him from his duty-appointed position other than disagree with 3 of you on this issue. You are setting a really dangerous precedent by attempting this heavy-handed removal, a precedent that would signal future members of all departments that in Banning it is more important to agree with whatever clique is currently in power than to do what is right for the city. So what's next, Mayor Welch? I've disagreed with you and your self-righteous arrogance for many years, oftentimes very vocally. While I have supported Franklin in her early terms, that support has evaporated as her decisions become more and more about her own power rather than what is really in the best interest of the city. Supermarket on the east side, anyone? And Moyer. Well, there's no secret to how I feel about someone who doesn't really want to pay for what they have used. So am I next? Are you looking for a way to remove me and others from the council chambers as you are trying to remove David Ellis simply because we have the nerve to disagree with you? In this country, we have a system that allows dissent, that allows disagreement, and that allows public airing of differing opinions. And that freedom extends to everyone, even if you dislike what they have to say. This agenda item is nothing more than a juvenile, petty attempt to eliminate truths and opinions that you find uncomfortable. And if that's the way you think city government should operate, then you, sir, should be on the removal end of that stick. Gary Hieronymus.
Anyone else?
I don't get it. He's a good planning commissioner, but because he speaks his mind and maybe ruffles feathers, he should lose his job. I don't get it.
Anyone else? Back to council. Any other comments? Peterson?
I don't know where to begin because I'm absolutely astounded by all this and really shocked. You know, the council, and before I even get into my whole summary of what I want to talk about, I mean, the council, for the last 3 years, we've been okay. We've really been okay. We've got along and everything has been good. But I got to admit, since the city managers got here, this council has taken a huge turn. Whether it's just all coincidental or maybe it was time to rock the boat, I don't know. But I can recall one thing, Arthur Welch, and you listen to what I say. I, Arthur L. Welch, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. The First Amendment, the right to freedom of speech, was adopted by our forefathers on September 25th, 1789, and I haven't seen anybody appeal it to date. That being said, if we're going to remove David Ellis because of his tax on whomever, it's just like some of the people have said. I can recall you sitting here with an open mic when these same people were sitting in the audience and saying, good, they're gone. Was that rude? Was that fair to the public to say, good, they're gone? Those are your constituents. I can also remember last year at Stagecoach Days when you walked through the gate and didn't pay and said, I'm the mayor pro tem, I don't pay, and walked through. You sent the apology to Stagecoach. They wrote the complaint, you know as well as I do. That was abuse of power. You don't need to write it down. I'll give you my notes when I'm done. Furthermore, you sat there in the beer garden and you said, when I'm mayor, I'm going to forgive the chamber debt. That was heard by many people. You know, and then we got Moyer. Go get my gun and shoot the son of a bitch. You know? Whatever it is, it's in the police report. Whether you said it or not, it's documented and it's in a police report. Whatever, it's in a police report. And then right after we appointed Richard Crick, he sat right out here and chastised the entire council within an hour of his appointment for us wanting to do away with the airport. I mean, we all got chewed. Every one of us got chewed, and you remember it. You know, and that was an appointment. But nothing's happening to these people, and that's no different than what he does. You know, and it's to the point where, and I've said this 100 times, you got to be able to take the heat. You know, politics, look at what they do on the national stage. You know, it's a whole lot worse than what we're going through. So I find this whole thing outrageous and hard to believe that we're sitting here talking about the removal of the chairman of the Planning Commission, and without cause. It's not for cause, it's without cause. A removal or firing that has been motivated, I believe, by the city manager, Michael Rock. Commissioner Ellis has had an impeccable record on the commission. There's never been any alleged wrongdoing, nor has there ever been an allegation of misconduct while he's on the bench or on the dais. Commissioner Ellis is so well thought of and respected by his peers that he was unanimously voted to sit in the chair position by his peers. Furthermore, our mayor, Art Welch, is in a one-on-one meeting with the Commissioner Ellis 2 weeks ago, you commended him for doing an outstanding job while on the commission. But yet 2 weeks later, you want to can him, you want to publicly execute him, tar and feather him, and march him down Ramsey like the North Vietnamese used to do to our pilots. It is true that Commissioner Ellis has verbally fired off a barrage of complaints. Absolutely. None of us refute that. And he's expressed his dissatisfaction with some of the city council's decisions. And why shouldn't he? I express them too. I'm not happy with the decisions that come up here. After all, he's lived in this town now for 65 years. His grandfather had a hand in building of the Fox Theater. So I believe Commissioner Ellis has the right to question his government, especially when he observes people destroying his town, people who moved here within the last 20 years, transplants like all of us, and has ran the debt up in his town to $115 million. Commissioner Ellis has watched sitting council members beginning in 2002 and up until 2012 give away millions of taxpayer dollars to their friends. You know it. You've been part of it. Friends like the Banning Cultural Alliance and the County of Riverside with this mess we got across the street. But more importantly, the United States Constitution protects Commissioner Ellis, and the First Amendment allows Commissioner Ellis the right to freedom of speech. And as of today, we are still living in the United States. I don't see a star out here on our flag, a red flag. But we need to talk ourselves, but we need to ask ourselves why. Why does the city manager and 3 council members want the commissioner off the planning commission? So let's start with the city manager. City manager Michael Rock does not like for the city council or any city commission to publicly embarrass any of his staff members. He has personally told me this, so I know it to be true. Isn't that right, Michael? We know that. So let's look at the most recent incident when a staff member was embarrassed by a commissioner or a council member. As you may remember, it was during January and February when our planning director submitted a comic book in the disguise of a mitigated negative declaration. The supposedly MND was a poorly plagiarized document for a project in the city of Harupa. If you do not know Commissioner Ellis, he's an individual who takes the position of planning commissioner seriously. Having seen and been a victim to some of the bizarre projects imposed on his town, he does not want to be responsible for a mistake, an eyesore, or another bizarre project that people like you bring here. So he reads and completely familiarizes himself with the agenda and all supporting documents. When Commissioner Ellis sits on the dais, he's ready for business. Unfortunately, Commissioner Ellis asked too many questions, asked too many, criticized the comic book, and in some ways, the staff member was humiliated because he wasn't prepared. And the staff member should have never brought that document forward, and the city manager should have never allowed it. Nevertheless, this did not sit well with Michael Rock. Which there's conflicting statements about that, but I won't get into it. Let's talk about Diversified Pacific. As you know, Diversified Pacific was just involved in a controversial zoning issue over the last couple of months. This is where the comic book was used and substituted for a mitigated negative declaration. In any event, the object here was Diversified Pacific wanted to decrease the size of 58 residential lots from 10,000 square feet to 7,000 square feet. This would increase the number of saleable residential lots from approximately 58 to 98. This is obviously a huge profit and a win for the developer because he can build more houses, make more profit. However, this was not good for Banning. I still see no purpose to create a high-density urban area when we are in a country rural environment. But Council members Welch, Franklin, and Moyer, who all received campaign donations from Diversified Pacific, all voted to increase their profit margin. And the city manager, well, after everything was said and done, Michael Rock wrote a letter to the editor, still trying to sell the project to the public. You know, he wanted to whitewash what it is that they've done. We need to finish up with Diversified Pacific and make you understand that Diversified Pacific is a company that is entrenched in corruption scandals. And you should also know that former Mayor and Council Member Bob Botts is a consultant and lobbyist for Diversified Pacific. Botts offers teas and coffee at his personal residence in order to promote Diversified Pacific's developments in Banning. He calls his little group Citizens for a Better Banning. In order to make sure everyone is up to speed, there's a new Diversified Pacific project named Rancho San Gregorio that is being proposed on the south side of town. Presently, the construction area is approximately 800 acres that is located south of I-10, east of Sun Lakes and east of Sun Lakes. Presently, this area is zoned for approximately 2,100 homes. However, Diversified Pacific, the developer, will be requesting the zoning change to allow approximately 3,800 homes. Since Commissioner Ellis ensured Diversified Pacific crossed their T's and dotted their I's on the small project located on Wilson, do you really think, think about it, do you really think that Diversified Pacific or our planning department or our 3 council members would want Commissioner Ellis on the Planning Commission? I think not. Banning is a unique town where the establishment, or what I call the club, and it's really the club, has ran this city for years, and it is a place where the boat is not rocked. However, Commissioner Ellis is like me. He asks a lot of questions, asks a lot. And when he does not get the answer, he will find the answer. Problem is, what else does he find? The public would be shocked at what we find under the rocks. Any questions, asking questions, got me sued. I asked way too many questions to our former police chief. He refused to answer. He got paranoid, didn't want to answer. And the next thing you know, he launched a lawsuit to get me to back off. So even though the suit was dismissed and thrown out of court, it's still aggravating. In Commissioner Ellis's case, asking too many questions is getting him fired from his volunteer, non-paid position. During a council meeting held on February 23rd, Commissioner Ellis spoke during the public comment as a private citizen. In his address, he criticized 3 council members, namely Art Welch, Debbie Franklin, and George Moyer, for being corrupt because they accepted donations from Diversified Pacific and rubber-stamped their project. I happen to agree with Commissioner Ellis's statement, but even if I didn't, his speech would be protected under the First Amendment, and his speech cannot be used to dismiss him from the Planning Commission. If the commissioner is being released without cause, but in reality based on one or more of the issues I spoke on, then I find that appalling and offensive. I realize the commissioners all sit at the pleasure of the City Council and can be released with or without cause. I also know the city manager sits at the pleasure of the City Council and can also be released with or without cause. So let me also point out that within the first 2 weeks of Michael Rock's employment, he created a huge rift between the Stagecoach Days Committee and a local business. It seems the city manager allowed a similar horse venue to be scheduled at Dysart Park 1 week before Stagecoach Days. I cannot emphasize enough the significance of Stagecoach Days for our city. It is a signature event that is even part of our city logo. To interfere with Stagecoach Days in any way is interfering with the prosperity and the identity of our city. And that's totally unacceptable. And all three of you sat up here tonight and said, don't mess with Stagecoach Days. You all agree that Stagecoach Days is the signature event. It's the primary focus of our year-long program. But yet it was tampered with. The city manager also wrote a letter to the editor whereby he attempted to whitewash a split decision by the council and attempted to sell it to the public. You know it. You all read it. Everybody out here read it. As the only viable solution. It is not the city manager's job to take sides on split decisions by the council. That's not what we hired him for. So the conclusion, bottom line is, if we're going to fire people, I will start with asking the city manager to tender his resignation effective immediately. For his incompetence and violating Commissioner Ellis's First Amendment rights, harassment, and retaliation. And that's all I have to say.
Any other comments from council? I want to make one statement before we end this up here tonight. I'm the one that requested the city manager to put this on the agenda tonight.
And you should have thought about this a little bit more, Mayor.
I'm the one who has taken an awful lot of criticism up here, unfounded. Hold on just a minute, reactions. A person, the one that I asked to be put on the agenda tonight, stood up here one night and read a statement accusing me of being an alcoholic. Unfounded, unresearched untruth. Yet I'm the one that gets to hear that. I've also sat up here one evening and heard the majority of the council be berated by Mr. Ellis and threatened with a recall. Now, my colleague up here, Mr. Peterson, can dig up all kinds of accusations and comments. But there's one just about as far from the truth for the three of us up here, and I think I can speak for the three of us on there, that have as much care for this city as anybody else. For 2 years, almost, I sat up here listening to decisions being made that excluded my recommendations. Today, decisions are being made excluding other people's recommendations. They don't like it either. There's not one of us up here that gets a political or a money gain from any decision we make. So to be indicted, and I think we're wrong on both sides of the fence sometimes, but to be indicted just on rumor, published for people to read, untruths, is not good for any of us. We've had people who've worked very long years in this city and done very well. But I think the hardest thing to put up with is a lack of respect for each other when we are making our case. And it's true on both sides. But but it gets really wearing on you. And I don't know why I keep rambling on here, but I want to make one comment. I'm the one that asked that this subject be on the agenda tonight, not the city manager. If you'll read the bylaws, the city manager cannot put this on the agenda. It has to come from a city council person. So quit beating on the person unless you know the actual truth.
Art, I'd like to respond to one thing. I don't believe David Ellis has ever published anything about you. I think what you're referring to are articles in the Banning Informer, and for on the record, I'm not the Banning Informer, and neither is David Ellis.
No, I didn't say that.
Yes, you did. You said published information.
Hold on. He read published information from that desk, from that podium right there, from the Banning Informer.
But that doesn't make him guilty. He didn't write it.
He agreed with it.
But so
And
what?
And hold on just a minute, guys. Hold on. This has nothing to do with his First Amendment or anything else.
Let me say one more thing, Art. David Heiss, sitting back here, has written for 2 years that I live in La Mirada. For 2 years, right, David? You know, that you referenced me to living in La Mirada. Don Robinson still today accuses me of living in La Mirada. And I would love somebody to do a tax record search and find some type of residence or building or address in La Mirada for me. I don't have one, but yet they still do it.
Don, you're missing my point.
No.
My point is,
you know what, partner? They're going to talk about us.
My point is that all of us are going through this.
Yeah,
and
we all do.
And we have to respond according to our beliefs. So it's back to the desk.
Mr. Mayor, I sat here and listened to all of this, and I'm not going to go any further with it. I'm just going to, pursuant to Banning Municipal Code Section 2.28.020C and Section 6.4C of the Manual of Procedural Guidelines for the Conduct of City Council and Constituent Body Commission Meetings for the City of Banning, I herein move that we remove David Ellis from the Planning Commission.
Can we get an opinion from the city attorney, please?
You know what, just leave it alone.
Okay.
Leave it alone.
Okay.
Their mind's made up. They're going to do what they want.
Call for the vote. Three to one in favor of the motion.